Here. I'm 1 minute early because I like to be early and hang out here for a while and let people kind of join in and let you know that I am available. And it also gives me a minute to check my phone over here and see if I can see some comments here. I'm trying to make sure that I can monitor the chat while I'm going through some demos today. But we're so excited to get started and give you guys all a nice tour of Aftershoot. If this is your first Lunch and Learn, there's so many new faces in our Aftershoot community and following us on Facebook and all the internet. So if you're new to Aftershoot, these are our Lunch and Learns. This is where I'm going to teach you guys all this cool stuff that we have going on, maybe sneak some cool things in, show you something that I'm not supposed to show you because that's what I like to do. But yeah, so seriously, thank you all for joining in. We'll give everyone just a minute to chime in. Feel free to let us know where you're from. Look at that. Leonardo already did. He's already let us know he is from Brazil. So thanks for joining us, Leonardo. Go through. Hey, Gustavo. Hey, Sandra. Hey, Liza. Got loads of people in here. Any new features? That's a great question from Jim. So I have something that I'm going to show just a brief glimpse of. It's not launched yet, so it's not coming out until probably next week. But I'll show you something real quick here. And I also have a really super amazing announcement that I'll probably lead with that, just because if you're familiar with Aftershoot, you'll probably pick up some tips and tricks by hanging out with me, but you may, if you're got to flow down, you may not want to hang out with me. I understand. But yes. So I definitely want to make this announcement. So now that it's 101, you're all going to get a nice little email coming soon. It's going to let everybody know we're doing a really cool little referral program, a limited time offer. So we're going to let everybody who refers, will have a special code for you in your Aftershoot for you to refer. You're going to get double rewards until December 20th. So what that means, this brand new referral system we're launching, we're kind of celebrating it here. You're going to be able to get up to $50 per referral, which means that if you refer just 5 people and you're on the basic plan, your next year is free. And if you refer 10 people, you don't have to pay for your pro plan. So we have a cool, you'll get an email all about that. There's all sorts of cool stuff, and there'll probably be some things like this. I just hung this up here to tease everybody. This is a prototype. You know what? I'm going to take it down and show it to you, because why not? This is a prototype. Some people signed up for a special deal here on to be able to get this. Some founders were eligible. So I'm going to show it off. They're going to yell at me if I show it off too long, but this is in the works. So yeah, that's version 1, just testing it out here, seeing how it works. But that's our little camera bag, which is pretty cool. So Mariana said, mine is freezing every time. Am I the only one? If you guys could verify my connection's good, that'd be super awesome. And then, so Jim, I'm going to show off that one feature just for you, because it sounds like you just want to see this real quick, but I'm going to show you off one new thing, and then I'm going to go through everything today. So I'm going to teach you guys all the ins and outs. I'm going to go over AI assisted culling, which is a brand new feature that people have kind of been asking questions about, want to maybe learn more about. Look at that. We got South Africa, Brazil, Israel, Fuerteventura. This is amazing. So we're gonna dive in. All right, the video isn't clear as it could be. That may be a MacBook issue, but understood on that front. Cool. So without further ado, we're gonna dive in. We're gonna get this thing off the ground. Will we send you the video after? Yes, it will be in the group, so you will be able to keep replaying about it. So cool. Let's dive in. I am going to show off this one little thing that's coming very soon. So we'll go ahead and share my screen here, and you should be able to see it now. So I did want to just showcase this feature. This is brand new. I'm just so you all know, I'm in an experimental build here. So there may be some glitches and bugs and that sort of stuff happening, but we are introducing this thing called survey mode. So just a little glimpse of it, but essentially it's going to allow you to compare all your images side by side. You'll be able to use a lot of the basic features. This is something that people have been requesting for a while, a survey mode. So this is like iteration 1 of it. We're really excited to have this, but definitely want to showcase how valuable it can be to see all of your clusters put together just like this. And then you'll be able to kind of filter how you want to see images. So you can see, again, these are those blur photos that didn't get selected, and then your selected photos. So survey mode is coming soon. And that's all I can really show you about that, because I wasn't supposed to show you it, but I wanted to. So welcome from Germany. Sorry, I'm watching the comments over on the side. So without further ado, I'm going to go through Aftershoot from head to toe. Please ask all the questions you want. I'm here for you. You guys are my only thing for the rest of the day. So I can take as long as you need, but I will go ahead and dive in. We'll start with culling, because that's obviously step number 1 for us. So again, if you're new to Aftershoot, we're going to give you every piece of the workflow here. So you're going to get everything from head to toe. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new album, and I'm going to go to start culling. Yeah, I know, right? I'm leaking spoilers all over. Yeah, there's some other ones I can't leak right now, but I have a lot of things coming. So if you're just joining us, there's like a million things in the pipeline. We're always working on new things. We have a whole new implementations and magical stuff coming. So the next 3 months, you're going to see a totally new thing. So I'm excited. I can't tell more. I don't want to spoil even more. But so this is your import screen. This is where you get to decide all of the different pieces of your session to get started for culling. So the first thing, you want to decide if you're going to use RAWs, JPEGs, or RAWs and JPEGs. You know, for me, I shoot both. I have RAW and JPEG. JPEG's my backup, RAW is my main file. So I only want to cull the RAW files because the JPEGs are useless to me. Other thing you want to decide is if you want to include the subfolders or not. This is really important, and I'm going to bring this up because I've seen it in the support a couple times already this week. If you have your Lightroom catalog inside the same folder as your raw files, if you click include subfolders, it's going to actually include all of the DNG files or your smart previews as well. So if you built smart previews in Lightroom, it's going to cull those as well. So if you notice that you're getting like, you know, 00EFWJKY as file names, that means that we're also culling not only the raw files, but your smart previews. So you may want to turn off this part. And yes, Steve, you can definitely, this will be up and you'll be able to rewatch it. But you can turn this off if you don't want us to call those smart previews again. Or like you could just put it in a different subfolder. Either way, I always use the subfolders. I think it's important. The other really important thing that we always tell everybody, we do not recommend culling off of a memory card. And the main reason being is that, you know, memory cards are designed to take information in one direction at a time, right? They're mainly meant to be like reading information from your camera or downloading the information to your computer. And what Aftershoot does is actually sending information back and forth, right? So it's culling, it's accessing data, it's sending data back. So your memory cards aren't really designed to handle that. So it'll slow down Aftershoot, but also because memory cards can be quite fickle, you increase the potential of corrupting it. So if your files are on a memory card, we recommend getting them off of that memory card. And this little button here is called ingest and backup photos. And this will actually allow you to take those files and download them directly to up to 2 different hard drives at the same time. So you can have your main hard drive and a backup hard drive if you'd like, or you can just download it to one hard drive if you'd like. But that's another important note to have there. And then, of course, there is Aftershoot is learning your style. Now, Aftershoot, the way we learn your culling preferences and your styles is by understanding the images that we've culled, and then we understand what changes you're making to those images, what images you're looking at, all sorts of different pieces that kind of go into this. And that information actually gets uploaded to the server where we train these models and send those models back down to you at every time you update. So if you turn this off, it means that the AI is not going to learn from you, but it also means that it's not going to upload anything to the internet. So if you're doing like boudoir or children or anything that you don't want to be up on our server, 100% you can turn that off. We don't use the images, just to clarify, we're not using the images for anything. So we're not like going in and doing anything with it, but it's up on the internet. So if you want to make sure that that those things are hidden, you can absolutely turn that off, so that the photo sharing doesn't happen. Now, if you are without Wi-Fi, the culling and everything still runs. So it doesn't matter if you just don't have Wi-Fi, it'll still cull. The learning just won't get uploaded until you're connected to the Wi-Fi. So next thing I'm going to do is select a folder. Now I can add a folder or select a folder. I can drag and drop this folder in. We're going to go ahead and just pick this one here. And I'll click import from this folder. And what's going to happen is it's going to start loading the photos. And you're going to notice they're going to start changing orientation. They're going to start changing order. And that's because this little rainbow bar up here is actually loading all the metadata. So right now, Aftershoot's reading all the files, understanding what's happening, what time they were taken, what if they're supposed to be vertical, horizontal, etc. And then we don't have to wait for that to go. We're going to just click on Start Culling. And we're now presented with two different types of culls. So I'm going to go over both of these today. We're going to start with the AI automated cull. This is the one where the AI is going to do all the heavy lifting and you're going to correct the AI. The AI assisted cull is a brand new version that we launched that essentially gives you a lot of tools to help you, but then it's going to leave the majority of the final selection up to you. So these are both different ways of going through it. So if you feel like, you know, especially sports photographers, if you're coming in, we're working on a sports pipeline heavily. But if you're coming in and saying, I'm not like super crazy about the selections it's making in sports, you may want to go towards the AI assisted version, which is going to help you determine if images are, you know, in focus, out of focus, cluster some similar images together. It's just going to help alleviate some of the workflow process from doing it manually, whereas the AI automated is there to try and get you as far along as AI can get you. So we're going to go for the AI automated cull, and I'm going to show you the preferences screen. Now, again, you can absolutely dive in with any questions. If I'm going too fast or you have anything you want to know, please do let me know. And the first thing we're going to do is choose the type of shoot. And this is really important because there are different algorithms for every type of shoot. So we have these magical unicorns and they look at different things for different sessions. So if you're shooting a wedding, we have like devoted kiss detection systems. So it's going to be looking for kisses. Whereas if you're doing portrait and headshots, we're not going to look for kisses. We're going to leave that unicorn out because it's not going to have the same impact, and it may actually change the results by including the kiss detection versus not including it. So this is why we have all these different categories, because we do have different algorithms for each one. Same thing like family portraits. We have specific algorithms for head direction and eye direction that aren't the same that we would use for boudoir. And the main reason being with boudoir, you're not having 4 people in a photo looking at the camera or looking away from the camera and determining if it's candid or not, etc. So definitely some different versions. If you don't see something that really fits what you're looking for, you'll head to others, right? So if you're doing something that doesn't quite qualify as one of these sessions, so I do see Sandy said underwater photos, you may go to portrait and headshot for that, depending on what kind of underwater photos we're talking. Otherwise, you may want to go towards others for this category. Now, I'm going to give you one other really important note. If you are a school portrait photographer, definitely use the school portrait mode. And the reason I say this is because the school portrait mode has a different set of workflow altogether. And I'm happy to kind of dive into that. I don't have an example of a school portrait session that I can show here. But essentially, to give you an idea, the school portrait session actually looks at the subjects, and it's going to try and pick out different poses for each subject. So if you have, you know, in a school portrait system, say you have 5 kids and you do 3 poses per kid, it's going to try and pick out 3 poses, the 3 different poses, one of each kid in the 3 different poses. And then it'll also accommodate QR codes. So it's going to preserve the QR codes, even if they're out of focus or anything, they're going to make sure that they're in there and lined up in order. So that's like a totally different pipeline. If you're, don't go to school portrait mode if you're not doing school portraits. If you're doing like pictures at a school event, you'll go to school events, and that's why we have that differentiation between the two. So in this case, we're using weddings and engagements. And the first slider you have here, this is your automated AI cull. We introduced some new algorithms that are actually going to make some decisions for you based on your shooting style. So if you were to select few, it's going to try and give you the least amount of images it can. If you select standard, it's going to kind of get you in the middle, and more, it's going to deliver more, right? It's going to over deliver the images, which some people actually prefer because they'd rather see more stuff and then go through and kind of tweak and adjust and do their final selecting out of there. The other option you have is your customized AI cull. So I'm going to go ahead and click customized AI cull, and you're going to see all my different categories pop up here for how I can dictate how I want the AI to cull my images. So first and foremost is our highlights feature. If you'd like us to kind of pick out and suggest the images that we think have the best emotion, have the greatest smiles, a couple of detail shots, things that don't have faces, we're going to go through and kind of pre-curate a set of images for you. Some people like to actually use that as their starting point. So if you're running a cull and you're saying, hey, I'm getting way too many photos, you may want to run the highlights and actually use the highlights as your selections because it'll give you a lot less photos. Next up, we have our duplicate photos. And this is probably the most vital piece to having how your images are selected. So as many of you know, Aftershoot's designed to give you one of everything. So if you are taking photos of, say, a wedding, and you have a whole bunch of different family groupings, it's designed to try and pick out one, even if of each set of groups, even if one of those groups has entirely out of focus photos. So what that means is that if you're making a creative decision, it's going to give you one of those regardless. But sometimes if like I shoot Nikon, this is my running joke. If you heard me speak before, I shoot Nikon. So there's always a pretty good chance that I'm going to have 4 out of focus photos in a row accidentally. And it's going to still pick one and show it to me because that's what it's designed to do. So we're not going through and actually saying, hey, like disregard these photos entirely. If we see that you're taking multiples of the same photo, we still want to pick one for you and show it to you so you can make that final decision. Was it creative? Was it accidental? Was it a really great photo that's just a little bit out of focus and I need to rescue it later because it's worth so much to the bride and groom or to the family or whatever it may be? So that's why we have that system in place. You'll always get more photos than you actually want. I'm going to show you some tricks on how to get it down faster, but that is how that all works. So first and foremost, you want to choose whether or not you want small groups or big groups. And the way I kind of explain this is small groups would be only the exact same photo, right? So nothing in the photo changes. They're just identicals. You held the shutter down for, 3 photos in a row. Nothing changed. Standard groups is going to start putting images together in which the heads start turning. There's slight changes in the overall image. And then when you go towards big groups, it's actually going to start including slight shifts in the body position as well, right? So we have that unicorn that's looking at body pose. It's going to start changing and clustering body changes in together as well. And then, of course, you have large groups, which are going to cluster together large amounts of images, right? So it's going to take into consideration images and where the full body changes position, in which the location changes slightly, right? So if you're changing your frame and composition, it's going to start including all of those together. And hi to Harley. Thanks, Harshit. Tell them all I said hi. And so that's essentially that large groups, right? They're going to put together large amounts of images in that set. So for me, I personally, based on my shooting style, I prefer the big group setting. Some people prefer standard. Large groups is really big. And if you're putting it on large groups, you're going to want to double check your duplicates a little bit more because there's going to be instances where you're kind of thinking, those shouldn't be clustered together as much. But the idea behind large groups is to get as many photos together as it can. And sometimes that means clustering some images where there's different people and that sort of stuff together. Next up, we have our blur detection. So this is where we can decide how we want to tell the AI to look at blur. So as I mentioned, if you're taking 4 out of focus photos in a row, Aftershoot's going to give you one of every duplicate set. But this is going to determine how strict we are when it comes to determining if something's in focus or out of focus. So if you set it to lenient, you're saying it's okay if it's not tack sharp. And this is a great setting if you're using, let's say, like a 1.4 aperture, right? So you have a little bit of a softer focus to the images. And that's because your focus point may not hit the eye every time. And the AI is looking at the eye. So generally speaking, if you're shooting at 1.4, if your focus point's on the nose, the eyes are still technically in focus, but they're maybe not as sharp. And so running it on lenient will take those images and consider them as good, right? So it'll look at them, it'll understand that, and it'll say, if this has good emotion, we can bring it up to the top. Whereas if you set it all the way to strict, that photo where you focused on the nose and the eyes are a little soft is going to get rejected. It's going to say, nope, this is blurry. So we recommend using strict when you're in a studio setting, when you're using like F4, F5.6, and we recommend lenient when you're shooting a little bit more wide open. Now, also something to take into consideration is your ISO. So if you're generally using a really high ISO, if you're going above 1600, you have really noisy images. Noise kind of gets interpreted as an image being less sharp, right? So if you have a perfect exposure at ISO 6400, it's going to be tack sharp. But if your exposure is even just a touch off at 6400, it's going to look like a noisy image. So you're going to want to run it more towards lenient in the same way, because again, that noise is reducing the pixels, right? It's essentially reducing how sharp the image looks overall. And then, of course, down here, you can always turn off the closed eyes if you don't want us to detect closed eyes. And then you'd simply click on Start Culling and let it run through and do its thing. Now I'm going to dive back because that's going to run, and I'm going to dive back and I'm going to show you what it looks like to set up the other mode. And then I'll show you how to review all these images and how to pick and make selections and whatnot. So next up, I'm going to come in, I'm going to say Start Culling. We're going to add a folder. I'm going to add the same one here. I'll click on Start Culling, and I'm going to click on AI assisted culling. So this is that brand new mode I was talking about, where we're going to just help you get a little bit further along into the process using AI, but we're not going to actually select those photos for you. So by clicking on that, you're going to see I still have that genre, because that genre does matter, right? That genre is going to help us with a couple different things. Even though we're not selecting images, we're still doing some things that involve different unicorns. So we do want to still know what type of genre it is. And then the only setting you get to decide is the duplicate photos, right? So how similar do the photos need to be put together into a group? So you can always run it on the small groups. Like I said, it's very, very individualized, or you can run it on the large groups where we're putting a lot of images all the way together. So I would just click on Start Culling, let it do its thing. We're going to pause that because we don't want to do that. I've actually already run a different gallery under that same pretext. So we're going to go to the AI assisted culling. So this is your AI assisted culling. As you can see, none of these images have any marks on them, right? There's no selected, there's no 5-star, 4-star, no colors applied, nothing. It's just the images and the similar ones gathered together. And the one thing you're going to notice here that's different is that you also have these partial closed and good focus. It's going to mark the images to let you know that these photos have open eyes, that they are in focus. So again, just some manual tools to make it a little bit easier for you. Now you will see there is the +7, so it did still group duplicate images together. So I can cycle through and you can see all the similar photos if you'd like. So this is our handsome model, Will Cadena. He's probably not watching, but he's hanging out, posing for the camera, and all of these photos got clustered together. And now it's up to me to pick the images I want. Now I could do this a couple different ways. I can either use my traditional method, which is 5-starring the images. So I can hit the 5 key and it's just going to mark that image as a 5-star. Or I can use the D key to add it to my selections. So my selections would be its own little set of images that I'm picking out. So again, I have full flexibility in how this all works. I get to decide how I want to cull these images. As you can see, those key faces are up. Those face indicators are up here as well in the loop view. So you can actually see all the photos. So I'm just using the arrow key to cycle through these photos just one by one. But if I stop here and I don't love this photo, right, I want to see the alternate versions of it, I can use the period and comma key to see all the similar photos in that group. And then I can pick a different one if I'd like. So let's say that, this is the one that was presented first, and then I want this photo instead. I can 5-star this photo, and now it's added into my ratings as a 5-star image. So these are just some of the tools and tricks of AI assisted culling, but it's essentially a manual version that has some of these extra little tools and pieces added onto it, right? So having these open eye marks, these focus marks, and that's definitely helpful. I'm going to pause really quick and go through some of the questions because I do see I skipped over a few questions here. Thank you, Jesse Rinka, for that. That's amazing. Cool. So Sabin wants to know, can these two options be combined? For instance, I want to use all my customized AI cull preferences, but would also have a less to more slider. So I'll dive back into that and I'll show you kind of how you can do that, because there is a rhythm to it when you're using the customized sliders. But essentially the AI, the single slider is just tweaking the sliders from the customized option just differently. So I'll explain that so it makes a little bit more sense on how you could do both. And then I did see, will the AI learn what my selections tend to be? Am I able to train the culling? Yeah, so AI will learn my selections. So we designed the My Selections tool to be a feature for the AI to actually learn from what you're picking out of what you've seen. So that's kind of the way to train it, right? So if you don't want to use the existing, selections, that My Selections tool is really designed so that you can, go to your traditional culling in method, which is just picking out your favorite photos that you'd like. And then the AI will start learning that you like those photos. And then we have, Mike says, I shoot a lot of events that are not weddings, like mitzvahs and corporate events. Should I still select weddings or use other? I would probably, corporate events, you could probably put in that school event category. The mitzvahs, I would probably run under the weddings and engagements, because the mitzvahs will, there's probably some images of people hugging and kissing and that sort of stuff. So with the school events, it's not going to pay attention if they're actually kissing or not. But the weddings and events, they'll look for those kisses. So I would still run that under the weddings and events. But the corporate events, unless it's a corporate event where they're kissing, you could probably get away with school events for that one. So we're going to go ahead and delete these because we don't need to see that run through. And I'm going to show you how to review the cull from your main screen when you have something that has been culled using the AI. So we have an AI cull here. Let's go down to a wedding that I have to cull. So here we have a wedding. We had 4,511 photos. So again, this is your AI cull. This is the first option that you had there. So this is our AI cull. We had 4,511 photos. There's 1,580 selected by the AI. And then there is 305 that are blurry, 83 that have closed eyes, 2,543 are duplicate photos. So remember, I was showing off that duplicate thing here. So these are all those duplicate photos. Now it's marking these as blur, which is kind of funny because it's actually identified the face on the cufflink. So it is sharp, but it's identifying that face and saying, yeah, that's not really an in focus thing, because I'm sure it wasn't the best print quality. But essentially that's what we're looking at, right? Is we have all of our images laid out, and I'm going to show you how you can review them quickly, but I'm also going to show you where all these images are, right? Because I think that's a question we get a lot of times, right? Is I have 4,511 images, where'd they all go? So like I said, there's 1,580 selected photos. And because I'm in the selected filter, these are all 1,580 photos. Now the 2,543 photos, which brings us up to like 3,100 photos or something. It brings us up to a higher number, right? Those are all those duplicate photos. So those are all just hanging out in back here, right? So I have a +5. There's the 5 other photos. So it's the selected plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like I said, you can use the period and comma key to cycle through all the similar images here if you'd like. And then I can always swap, add, and reject. So in this case, I can go ahead and hit the S key, and the S will switch the images out. Or if I like 2 different versions of it, I can hit the A key and it'll add that image in. So now I have both versions selected. So I still have the ability to customize and review that cull. All the keyboard shortcuts are here, so you don't have to memorize them, right? So the period and comma are showing me the next images in the set. The S is going to swap, the A is going to add, and the X will reject the photos. So I'm going to pop all the way back up to the top here, and I'm going to show you some quick tips and tricks. So remember I was saying Aftershoot's going to give you one of everything. It's going to go through and say, hey, these are all the photos that you've taken that are in a group. And this is a prime example, right? So this wedding, My second shooter has a really high ISO, and I'm actually going to make this bigger. It looks like the wall is in focus, but the subject is not. So it still selected one of these pictures. I'm guessing the focus point was in a, off to the side or something. But essentially, I've got 6 photos and none of them are in focus, but Aftershoot still picked the one because they took 6 photos of the same exact moment, and it's not in focus. So it's still giving us that option so that I can see it. Now you're noticing there's a little yellow bar up here. That's a warning image. So there's this category of 400 photos down in the right-hand corner. This is your warnings, right? So this little section here, those are 400 images that are actually in the selections. So Aftershoot selected them. There's 400 of them, but they're probably the 400 weakest images that we took that day, right? So it's saying there's either eyes closed or focus issues, or the images are a little bit soft. I think like the flash wasn't firing on a lot of these. So that's why a lot of them kind of look a little bit funky, or there was some focus issues with the camera. So I could always go through and review these photos and kind of get myself a little bit ahead if I'd like, just getting rid of some stuff. For my clients, I'm probably only delivering 1,000 photos. So I could get rid of a handful really quickly here. So like all these photos are useless to me. I can go ahead and just shift and click on them and reject them. And then I got 5 photos that are gone right away. This one, maybe I would sharpen it back up because I kind of like the photo. I think these are cool. So maybe I would preserve them to some extent. These ones I'm not going to salvage. They're not worth salvaging. So I can go through and kind of just reject a handful of these. So I'm quickly reducing my numbers down through this warnings filter. And this is my actual workflow. I actually go through and I select all of them and reject them all. And then I use some other tools that are really cool to help me review them over time. So I can actually choose to filter my photos with a green color, and then I can add in a gray. So now I can see all those images I rejected that were warned as I go through and review my cull. So I have both the green, which are the selected ones, and then those gray ones are all the images I just rejected from the warnings. So I'm already at 1,100 photos, and I can simply go through and do a quick review. Now, the other thing I personally do is I use something called spray can mode. This is my favorite thing ever. So by simply clicking on this spray can, I can decide what every click action does on the computer. So I can choose to have my left click reject photos and my right click add them to my selections. So all I have to do, like this photo, I don't want it. I click on it and it's rejected. And I can simply go through and click on everything I don't like. And then any of those photos that were marked as warnings, which we'll find one here, like somewhere. Like let's say I really like this photo. This is one of those warnings that I rejected. If I really like this photo, if I right click on it, it's now selected. I've added it back in. So now I'm just tweaking on 1,100 photos and kind of trying to get to my final place where I'm really happy with the results. So that's my actual workflow for this. When it comes to doing weddings, this is like life-changing. When it comes to family sessions as well, I absolutely love it. The key faces are really helpful. The other thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to exit spray can mode. The other thing I'm going to show you is how I actually utilize some of that. And then I'm going to show you the other way to do it, which is the My Selections feature. So we're going to go ahead and scroll down and find some photos, some group photos that are very similar. And I'm going to look for some things that I can kind of tweak on for you here. Sorry, I'm looking for, all right. So here I have bridal party. So let's just say the AI selected this photo here, and it says there's a +2. So there's 2 additional photos that are very similar. Now, when I'm reviewing these pictures, I'm not necessarily going through the other 2 unless I land on a photo like this. So the AI selected this photo. There's 9 people in this photo, and I don't like this guy's face. Not because I don't like his face, but because he's like, it looks like he's half talking, maybe half smiling. He's not quite there. So the only thing that would deem whether or not I want to swap this photo is that key face. So I can simply just scroll through and see if there's a better version hidden behind it. And in this case, there's not really. So the AI pretty much hit it on the head. I mean, his face is weird now. He's got a weird face there. So this is probably the best it's going to get. So I'm going to leave that alone. But that's really like one of the most powerful things to be able to do is just look at these faces and see, like in this case, it selected this one, but she's got closed eyes. And it says that they all pretty much have closed eyes because they kind of do. So I'm going to go through and just slowly look at the key faces. This one looks a little bit soft for me. That one's getting softer. I think I was like in the middle of zooming when they started laughing because I made a joke. So I guess this one might be the best of them. So I'm going to use the S key and just switch it out here. So I made that quick swap by simply, I'm going to add it in here. So I made that quick swap by simply just adding in, this was one of those warned images. So I just, I swapped the image out now and it's in my selections. So again, it's just one of those things. I don't necessarily need to look at every single photo. Like when I get down to the punch here, I have like this, I have a +6. I'll just scroll through real quick and see if anything is worth changing, right? And this is fine. Everyone's looking at the camera. They're making goofy faces. That's what I intended. And then I would come down to something like this. I have a +5 here. I can always cycle through and see if there's one I like better. Maybe I'll swap that one out using the S key, but that's really what I'm doing. And I'm going through and just, again, rejecting images that I don't want from the set. I'm going to add this one back in. I would do it in spray can mode, but I left that mode. And then, yeah, it's literally just kind of fine tuning and adjusting what I'm looking at based on that. So again, really quick workflow and really easy to kind of utilize once you kind of understand how it's supposed to work, right? So these duplicate images, I don't necessarily need to look at every single duplicate image unless the first one doesn't look good, right? And I can go, if I find their group or their, like here's a great example. Here's a +5. This photo is great. I don't need to see anything else, right? I can just move on. Here's a +2. Everyone's smiling, looking at the camera, moving on. Smiling or not smiling, looking at the camera, because I always say, like, do your blue steel Zoolander face, right? So I'm just going through and looking at them and making sure that the key faces look good, but I don't need to see the other 8 photos behind it because they're just me overshooting. So again, just looking to make sure that things are operating the way I want them to. In this case, I would go through this one because it's a +5, and generally I don't take 5 of the same photo and when it's just the 2 of them. So I'm going to add this one in because they changed their head pose. But again, I'm running it on big groups, so that's an expected behavior because the head pose, it's going to just try and pick out the one. So here again, same thing. I'm going to find that other one and I'm going to add that one back in. So I'm just doing slight tweaks and adjustments to it, but essentially just utilizing the key faces. And again, that top image, right? In this case, there's a +4 and they're smiling, looking at the camera. I don't need to see the other 4 behind it. It's just adding extra work that's not necessary to actually making my results good. They're smiling. They look good. Everyone's happy. It's a win for me. So I'm going to go ahead and pop back over to the comments really quickly before I show you my selections. Key faces is 100% a game changer. Absolutely. And I will show you loop view. So this is a little known shortcut that people don't really use, but if you're culling in loop view or you hit the enter key and you enter loop view, you can always click on any face and go right to it if you have a question about that face and you're kind of just wondering what it looks like. But you also have the ability in loop view to use the option arrow key. An option arrow is actually going to cycle you through all the faces as well. So you have the ability to use the key faces as a quick determinator, but if you're not sure and you want to get a little bit more in depth and zoomed in, you can absolutely use those key faces to take advantage of that. Other thing that I didn't talk about that was introduced recently from the AI assisted Cull. So remember that other culling mode, you can actually click on the smiley face and it's going to offer you the ability to see those partially closed eyes if they're in focus. All of those pieces are now available for you to review on the images if you'd like them. If you don't, you can just click on the smiley face and get rid of them again. So again, that's another cool little thing that we didn't really talk about. We just kind of threw it in there and let it go. So if you're looking to have some of the image scores applied to the faces, you absolutely can have them applied. And we're going to go to the next one, 75%. I take the selected and be done with it. You have spoiled me. Yes, I do that too. You know, depending on the session, sometimes I'm like, yep, just get them all in there and I'll deal with it later. Anyway, that Aftershoot could be set up so the same people stay in the same boxes versus jumping to a different location and key faces. So, Judy, I heard you, and it's already been worked on. So there was a change at some point. We were trying to do some different things with the key faces. So that change was implemented. We're reverting back so that the key faces stay in the same position, because that's as soon as I used it like this, I was like, no, I don't want to go hunting for the person. I want it to be the same person. So that will be implemented and pushed out very soon. We're going to go back to that old way where they're all in the same faces. And then, yeah, so Kate, you have the same questions. We're going to keep those faces in the same place. So Claire's wondering how she views the, Claire is going to ask, how do I review the rejected images? Great question. So up at the top here, you have this color bar where you can actually decide what colors you want to see. So if I click on photos with no color, those are all the photos that I have rejected, right? So the photos that I don't want, got rid of them. So that is how you could review them. Now, Aftershoot in and of itself does not reject any key faces, right? Or sorry, any photos. So Aftershoot's not going to straight up say nothing gets a star in color. So the only reason I have all those rejected ones is because I rejected all the warning images and I started rejecting some. So Aftershoot won't actually go through and do that for you. But there is a place that I do want to cover that has two categories in which the photos are there. Let's see, Claire, my rejected images aren't showing in the color bar at the top. Oh, interesting. So I guess it would depend on how you're rejecting them. So there's I'm going to dive into preferences, and I'm really sorry if you came here to learn about editing where I'm going super long, but culling is such an awesome topic. So you can absolutely, I'll keep going, but maybe we'll do another one of these with editing as well. But so if your rejected images aren't showing, there is, if you did it with spray can mode, can you just click on the spray can and see what the rejecting or what that action looks like? So if you're setting it to no colors, then it should appear in no colors. Or if you just changed it so that it has no stars, but the color is the same. So let's say it's green with no stars when you click on it, then you would have to filter by the images that are not starred. So you would just do this, and you'd be able to filter by those. So that's one thing. And of course, you can always reach out to support. They can kind of help you. And Alicia, yeah, I can definitely do this for editing. I'm going to talk a little bit about editing after this. And again, this is going to stay up. You can always come back and review and check it out. But yeah, we can do another one of these for that as well. And then Jag wants to know, can you have a different profile for your culling? So for example, you have multiple profiles for editing. Wasn't sure if you can for culling too. So we don't have that set up. So there isn't like an implementation for that. It's kind of learning all of the things that you prefer as a photographer. So that would be the case. So one more thing I did want to cover in culling really quickly, and then I'll dive into edits. So we're going to talk about the My Selections tool. And now someone had asked before if it can learn from My Selections. We do learn your preferreds from My Selections. So in this case, you'll see these little circles in the lower right-hand corner. Now I can click on those and it's going to add them to My Selections. So I can also use the keyboard shortcut D. And now that's customizable. I'm going to go show you the preferences screen as soon as I'm done with this, but that's customizable as well. But right now it's the keyboard shortcut D. So I can actually go through, or again, in spray can mode, didn't mean to jump here. In spray can mode, I can go to My Selections as well. So I can actually click on this and have it just be a left click to add it to My Selections. And so the way to use the My Selections tool is to essentially take what the AI has done and pick out your favorite images for it. So I personally use the My Selections tool a lot when I'm overshooting like a ton and I just want like 10 photos. So when I go take my kids out and do a session with my kids or family portraits, I'm shooting like 1,000 photos because kids are crazy and they're running all over the place. And I really only want like 30 photos total from the whole thing. So I let the AI cull out my blurry photos, my closed eyes photos, give me my selections, cluster the duplicates, and then I use the My Selections tool to simply just click on the photos that I want, right? So I'm just going through and saying, I want this one, I want this one, I don't need these, I like that one, and just scrolling through in the grid view or in the loop view and just picking out the photos that I really want to add to my selections. And then you'll see I click on my selections and I have those 8 photos I just clicked on or just hit the keyboard shortcut D for. Those are all in my selections. So this is my own curated set of photos that I picked out from what the AI did. And you, of course, can go through, oops, sorry, went backwards, one screen too far. I can, of course, go through the similar images, right? So if I'm the selected and I can see that there's 10 different photos here and I like this one better, I can hit the D key and that one is going to end up in the My Selections as well, right? So the My Selections will have that yellow photo. So again, just a nice fast way to kind of go through. Now, I'd mentioned it before, everything appears on the screen with the exception of your blurred images and your closed eye images. These are the only 2 categories in which photos don't necessarily appear in your selections. Like I said, the duplicates are hidden behind your selected photos, your warned images are there, but the blurred images and the closed eye images are single images. So what this means is that it's not a part of a duplicate set, but it's a one-off image that the AI thinks is blurry or has closed eyes. So in this case, like these photos, you may want to go through and like, I mean, these are really bad focus. So I'm not going to do anything with it, but sometimes you find some images in here that you may want to keep. Like this one, I'm pretty sure has like a little bit of motion blur. If we zoom in, it's pretty bad, but it's a funny photo. So maybe I'd add it in. So I can hit the A key and it adds it to my selections. So some people do prefer to review these. Generally for me, I'm not totally there yet. I don't necessarily want them, you know, to a lot of them are just bad photos in general, but sometimes they are good photos that are, or decent photos that I could salvage or run through some sharpening and get back. So again, depends on how you want to do it. You could also see these if you wanted to by clicking on the red, the green, and the purple. Now I can see all of the images all together. Or like I said, that survey mode also has that ability, right? So you can see these are all the red images, and then I have that duplicate set with the selected images in it as well. So yeah, those are a couple of the quick things. For culling, I'm going to talk about our culling preferences because this is also another place where you can find some cool tips and tricks that you may like. And then Liza wants to know, can you upload your own preset in editing? I will teach that for sure. And then there isn't currently a way to give the AI a target number to cull down to, right? That's correct. We have some stuff in the works. I can't give you an official date on it because we're still working on some things. So that's still in the works. So next thing we're going to talk about is just your keyboard shortcuts. Here's your grid view shortcuts. So as I mentioned, you have the arrow up, arrow down, period, and comma is going to show you the next image in the set. So you can customize all of these different shortcuts. Same with loop view. I can choose how I, enter a different screen, how I look at images, how I go from key faces, zoom in, zoom out. And then, of course, I have these other ones. So survey mode is the letter N, but I could always change that to something else if I want it to be a different button. So you have the ability to customize them all. I'll show you really quick. It's really easy. So if I wanted to, the talk to support button is F1. If I want that to be the letter P, I just click on the P and it'll go ahead and make that P. So all I do is click on the letter, click on the button that I want it to be, and then it'll go through and it'll just change that for me. So that's how you change your keyboard shortcuts. Now, other thing I want to talk about really quick, I'm going to discard those changes, is these miscellaneous settings, because these are really, really important as well. So these are a couple things that you may want to have implemented on your software. First one is enable auto advance after changing a star in color. So if you change a star or color in Aftershoot and you want it to automatically go to the next photo, so let's say I hit the X key and reject a photo or the A key and add a photo, it'll automatically go to the next photo once you've made that change to it. So that's a really good feature that I personally love to use. We also have the zoom level, maintaining the zoom level when you're in the loop view. So when you're looking image by image, if you zoom in, you can actually maintain that same amount of zoom across the whole thing. And then automatically change the star rating while changing the color and vice versa. So I forget who it was. We were just asking, I think it was Claire, about the spray can mode sort of thing. If you check this button, automatically change star rating while changing the color and vice versa, that takes care of it in all the other modes as well. So if I hit the X key on a 5-star green image, it wipes the stars and the colors. So essentially you're going to get, anytime you change one or the other, it'll change them both. Next one, which is probably the most important one, if you want to turn off the email notifications when your cull or your editing is complete, you can just check this box here. So if you don't want to be emailed to let you know that your cull went really well, you can do that. And then update the list of images immediately upon any changes made to star and color. So this means that if I'm clicking on any sort of image in that grid view, if I reject it, it's going to make it disappear from the grid right away. So this is one that I personally like because I don't want to have all my rejected images there when I reject it. I want it to go away and show me the next photo. Auto skip reviewed images in a duplicate set in the loop view. So if you've already seen a photo in that cycle, it'll automatically skip over it. So you don't have to keep looking at the same photos over and over. And then you can write the keywords to the metadata. And then you can choose whether or not we remember if you use automated culling or AI assisted culling. And then last but not least, save my key faces slider setting. So if we'll go back to the key faces really quick here. So if you like to have small key faces or really big key faces, we can remember that for you and keep that as a steady pace there. So that is your culling nutshell as fast as I can get through an in-depth tutorial on culling. I'm always going to be here. So my name's Justin, so you can always tag me and I'll happily answer any further questions if you're watching this later and you have more questions about how that all works. So once I've done what I want to do, I can simply just select all of the images and that I want to bring in. So in this case, we're going to just select either the My Selections or the selected, and I can simply drag and drop them right into Lightroom or Capture One or wherever I want to go. The other thing I can do is save changes. I didn't go over the workflow. If your images are already in Lightroom, that's a whole nother thing. And we can talk about that at some point if anyone has any questions, or I can make a quick another one of these based on that. But I do want to try and get to editing just because it's already been it's already been 50 minutes. So I do want to give people a little bit of time in the editing mode as well. So last thing here, you're just going to click export, and then you can also export to a folder if you want to copy them, move them, all that exciting stuff. So once my images are in Lightroom, then it's time to go, or Capture One, then it's time to go into the editing process. So currently what you'd have to do is have those files in Capture One or Lightroom, and then you're going to come back to this screen and you're going to click on Start Editing on whatever that project was, or you can just create a new album and start editing. And you can go in and we're going to skip past that. You're not supposed to see that stuff. So you can come in and actually choose the style that if you have any of the pre-built styles downloaded, we can run those. Or if you built your own profile, they'll also appear here. So you would choose that. You could choose the color profile that you like to use, the cropping, the straightening, and then you would choose the Lightroom catalog you want to edit. And you would click on add. And then of course, this button here, it gets missed quite a bit. It's the filters button. So make sure you choose the files you want to do. So I'm going to choose a collection here. And then you would choose the filters you want to apply. So a lot of times I see people posting in the group, like asking, hey, it didn't edit my second shooter's files. A lot of times it's because you didn't check off the box for their camera. So I always just click select all. So it edits all the files from all of these cameras. And then I would just choose what images I want to do, whether it's RAWs, JPEGs, or virtual copies. And then I would apply those filters and then just edit those 114 photos. Now I want to get to the question about making a great profile. So one of the big keys to making a really good AI profile is the data that you give it. And I think it's really important to make sure that we're taking, a lot of consideration into the images that you give to AI, because you can also teach it to work bad. So essentially, when you're uploading your catalogs, if you don't have a lot of images to upload, so if you're only giving it like 2,500 or 5,000 photos, for it to learn from, you want to make sure that you're picking out the true images that it should be learning from, and not just kind of giving it everything you got because all you've got. And the reason I say that is because the AI can become quickly biased. So if you're only giving it images that are taken on a sunny day, and then you expect it to learn how to edit photos on a cloudy day, it's not going to do really good on a cloudy day. It's going to edit everything like it's a sunny day just because it only really knows how to edit on a sunny day. Now, of course, there are some ways that you can get through this and do this differently, right? So you can always go ahead and make collections of different sessions and try and balance them out, or you can add in all the photos that you possibly have that are all edited the same. You can do that, but essentially to make a nice stable profile, it really is just kind of about picking out different things that you want it to learn, different use cases. So like give it some 500 cloudy day photos and 500 sunny day photos, and say 1,000 indoor photos, and just kind of giving it a nice diverse set of images. And the other thing to mention is you don't want to just give it the best of the best, because I think a lot of people, that's what they do. They go, okay, these are like my portfolio images. And it doesn't learn how to make your portfolio. It only learns like when you have a portfolio wedding, but when you have like that really awful lighting, terrible lighting sort of wedding, it doesn't know how to edit those because it's never seen it. It's never seen that condition. It knows what you expect the end product to be, but it doesn't know how to get there when it starts in a lackluster position, so to speak. Whereas like when you're only giving it like, this is a wedding from a cloudy day and everything was perfect, or a family sessions only happen at sunset, and then you go and give it like a rainy family session, and it's like, what? How do I correct for this and make it go where I want it to go? So those are really important, notes just to take part of. And so I'm actually going to do something really quickly here, because I did see that question from Liza about, can you upload your own preset and editing? So the short answer is no, you can't just come in and just give us a preset and have us learn how to edit with that preset. But there is a way to kind of do that. And I'm going to show you right now how to do it. I'm going to go ahead and click on edit again. And I'm going to choose the gray card profile, wherever it is. So gray card is a nice neutral middle one. So I'll do gray card bold. Why not? So I'm going to go ahead and use gray card bold. And I'm going to run it across these 114 photos. And it's going to edit them in a very basic white balanced exposure, all of those things kind of adjusted style. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in and apply my preset on top of that with some specific things attached to it. So I'm going to get a style out of here using presets, but using the really awesome, robust gray card. So we'll go ahead and click on review in Lightroom. Kate is asking, do you eliminate second shooters images from your Lightroom gallery before you upload it to the AI? I started training mine on only wedding I shot solo, but most of my catalogs have multiple shooters. Maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I uploaded everything. So I went back all the way to I think the founder's profile is based on my work for the past 2.5 years. So I had a little bit of Nikon, a little bit of Sony, a little bit of Canon. Primarily Nikon, because the majority of I shoot Nikon and the majority of my seconds shoot Nikon. So there's a handful of Canon files, a handful of Sony files, but essentially it doesn't really matter. It actually kind of helps diversify the data set and make it a little bit smoother, in my opinion. So definitely something worth looking at and checking out. So I would just, I would start by, let's say, taking, and again, incremental is great, right? I wouldn't say, hey, go find 500 weddings of yours that you've done and upload all 500 weddings. I would instead say hey, why don't you take 10 weddings at a time, upload them, have it train, run it on a set of images and see how it works. And so this catalog here, this is my example catalog. You've probably all seen it before. Any video I've made with editing. This is literally just some files from last year's weddings. I just took like 100 files that I used for sneak peeks, right? So they're all just different lighting conditions, different things. These are all just sneak peek files. I dumped them all in to Aftershoot, or sorry, into Lightroom, into one catalog, so that I would just have them all together and then made a collection out of it. So I just have all of these, files loaded up here, to show all the different conditions and different things and how all these profiles work on the different conditions. So it's just one of those things that, again, it's building my founder's profile. It was incremental. So I had a 12,000 image profile, and I can actually show you the difference here, which actually, this will be fun. So I have a 12,000 image profile, then I brought it to 20, then I brought it to 40, then I got up to 60, which is where it's at. That's the one that you guys are using, is 60,000. So that's kind of how I did it with the founder style. And I'll show you for fun. So this is your founder style. This is run on the 60,000 photos. And I have run in the past the profile of like 4,000 images. Somewhere there's one called Justin's profile. There's one. All right. So here, Justin's profile is run on 4,000 images. So this was just 4,000. So it was like 5 weddings or so that I put together. And then I went for my Valentine's profile, which was 12,000 images. So you can see the skin tones came back. It did make a significant leap from 4,000 to 12,000 photos. So again, just the 4,000 images. It's a little bit bright. It's not quite as warm. It's not like terrible, but it's not as great. And I'll show you the before too. So there's your before. So it didn't quite hit it the way I wanted it to. And then that's the 12,000. And then the super mega was the 30,000. So you almost can't tell the difference between 12,000 and 30,000 images. So again, just pretty straightforward, but that's the difference of them all together. So I'm going to go back to that question about how to actually apply a preset. So I ran gray card bold on these set of images. So I have a basic white balance and a basic, adjustment to the highlights and shadows and that sort of stuff. So there's just kind of this basic look put into it. And then what I can actually do to get a preset applied across any of them is come on in. We're going to take a preset. Let's see. I have lots of presets here. We're going to take a preset by Embrace Presets. Well, let's do Veronica. I like Veronica. That's a fun look. So we'll go find Veronica here somewhere. All right, we'll just do any one of hers because I'll never find it. So she has this preset called, let's see. Let's do Daughter of the Moon. Why not? Daughter of the Moon is the style, right? So essentially, I have this preset, Daughter of the Moon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that preset, and I'm going to come up to the top, and I'm going to click the plus sign and create a new preset based on this information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the basic stuff. So I want all of that to stay somewhat the same, with the exception of the saturation and the vibrance, because that's part of the look, and the texture. And so what's going to happen is it's going to leave all the other sliders alone. So I create that preset, and then what I can do is simply apply the preset that I just created on all of the images to get that look. I'm not going to do it on all of them because then I can't show you all the stuff we just did. But I just created that new profile, or that new preset. So we ran it on gray card bold. I don't even remember what we just called it. My apologies. But what I'll do is apply that preset. Oh, here's Veronica. So I have the preset hack, I think, right? The preset hack. Nope, that's not the preset hack. But essentially, I've got that preset that's going to apply all the tone curves, all the other pieces wherever I saved it. Sorry I totally lost it. I should have remembered what I wrote it down as. But essentially, I'm applying that preset that's going to apply that style to it. We'll do it again, just so that I'm not crazy here. Create a preset. Oh, untitled preset. That's why. Let's call it Embrace. So we're going to go find that embrace and go to the next image, right? So I go to the next image, I find that profile called, or that preset called embrace. So I'm using the gray card to white balance and do all of the other stuff. But because I built that preset based on leaving all the other sliders alone, now I have that kind of dark, moody, stylized look from the preset. But the white balance, the exposure, the highlights, the shadows, they've all been touched by Aftershoot the way I'd want. So this is kind of a shortcut way to get to your final end result, essentially, while you're in the process of building up enough images to have your own set here. So again, just a little bit of a hack. We don't have the ability to directly plug a preset in as of now. So you're not able to just say, hey, I want this to go for it. And yeah, Liza, gray card bold is there. So gray card bold is in the marketplace. We have a whole bunch of different ones. Gray card's a little bit flatter, which I didn't run it on gray card. I should have run it on gray card, but gray card's a little bit flatter, so it works better for that hack. But essentially, yeah, I would start with gray card. Here it is. So gray card's it doesn't have as much tone curve and as much punch in it. So that would be my recommendation for it. And then also, I do see this question come up a lot of times, like, how do I run the same profile over and over again on a photo? And that's pretty easy. You're just going to run, like on that final screen where it says edit again, you can run edit again, and then just choose the next profile you want to run and keep running them over and over. And then over here, I can simply just see all the different profiles that we have available. So you can see all the different edits applied, all of the different styles, etc. So you can run them all on the same photos over and over and over and over again, as many times as you want. So you can see all the same, all the images with different edits, and kind of choose which profile you would prefer to have for your style or your starting point. And then I'm going to just go over something else really quick. So we're going to show you a little bit about profile adjustments, because I think this is a feature that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to or look at. So profile adjustments is the ability to actually tweak and adjust a profile. So I'm going to head on over and go to My AI Profiles. And we're going to skip down here. We're going to find some different profiles. So we have the ability to adjust the profile. So by clicking on the 3 dots on any profile, you can choose to improve it. So if you've already run your edits through and tweaked them, you can improve them there, or you can improve them on the other screen as well. But you would click improve profile to improve the profile. But the other thing we can do is actually adjust the profile. So let's say you downloaded my profile and you love it, but you want to tweak some things on it. By clicking adjust profile, I can now actually override some of the things that it does. So let's say you use my profile, but it's overexposes everything because you expose a lot brighter than I do and you want to reduce that. One thing you can do is click on tone, and then you can actually take down the exposure just a little bit, right? So you can say -1 for the exposure. So what it'll do is the AI will still determine the exposure, but then it's going to reduce the exposure on top of what the AI determined. So essentially, this is a nice little hack or a fast way to get through a process and essentially adapting a profile to fit your style a little bit more. This also means that you have the ability to tweak some other things. So I can come into the presence and I can add some clarity and some texture and some saturation and some vibrance to these photos. And then I can go into the sharpening, and let's say I want to make everything a lot sharper. I can absolutely do that. I can tweak the noise reduction as well. So I can say, hey, this session was way past dark and I want the noise reduction to be cranked up really high. I can do that. Or I can come down to the hue saturation. And this is always a fun one, right? I could always just click all over the place and make some random things. And I'm going to oversaturate this. I'm going to make the worst profile adjustments ever right now, just to show you how this all works. But this is a nice place to kind of tweak and adjust profiles and essentially get a different look from your existing profile. So let's say you started to build a profile and then you want to kind of make some different things happen within it or create a different style. You absolutely can. So I have the founder style just set up absolutely crazy right now. So we're going to head on back and we're going to just edit this again under the founder's profile. And it's going to have all those wonky adjustments on it. And it should be quite hysterical to see what we've done. So we'll go ahead and edit those photos and it'll run through. we'll open it up and you'll see probably really gross colors all over the place and fun stuff. But again, it's just to kind of showcase some of the things that you can do within the software right now as it sits, which is really cool to, again, just adapt your style, adjust. Let's say that you've built your AI profile, but it's always way too warm. You can always have it just turn that down. One of the things that I do, because I rarely shoot without off-camera flash indoors. So I actually built my profile based on that. And what that means is that whenever I shoot at a church and I can't use a flash, it means that my photos are really yellow. So I actually make a collection and then use the profile correction to turn the white balance down a little bit. Because again, like in most cases, the churches, they have really great light on the altar, so it doesn't really matter. But when they're coming in and out of the church on the processional or recessional, everything's really yellow. And I usually, they'll let me use flash, and I, throw some flash up to kind of get a little bit more drama and a little bit more of a cleaner white balance and stuff. But some churches don't let me do it. So in those churches, I have to kind of do that correction. So we're going to open up this and see what kind of magic we just created. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop talking because it's been a really long time. I'm going to let you answer or let you ask questions and see what you guys think. So here's our horrible profile that we just built. As you can see, it looks absolutely terrible. But that's what we did. So again, we have the vibrance and saturation and the texture and the clarity and all these funny sliders that I just built, right? So I just made this really ridiculous adjustment to the images. But again, these are things that you can do within moderation to correct a profile or a certain scenario, or again, just help improve all the different pieces that you want. Which again, Liza, that's also a way that you can do it. So let's just say that you have a preset that you normally would use. So we'll go to this preset here. I could mimic all of these settings from the preset on top of like a gray card or something like that, or my own profile to essentially make the preset work within the existing space. So I could copy these settings too. Maybe not the highlights, shadows, that sort of stuff, but maybe all of these other ones I could actually apply to my images. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and get to some questions. I think there's definitely questions that I missed because I was watching on the Facebook. So if anyone was commenting from YouTube and I missed your question, please do comment it again. I'm going to try and scroll back and see what I can find because it seems like there's a lot here. And hopefully you guys learned something, got a little bit of something cool out of this. We're really excited to launch some new things. Like I said at the beginning, we're doing a really cool thing with referrals. So we're going to be doubling your referral credit. So that means that until December 20th, you're going to have a code to be able to share. You'll get an email about it soon, but you'll share that code, and everyone who signs up is going to basically give you a credit. So they'll get a discount and then you will get that credit. So you could end up not even having to pay for Aftershoot. Allie wants to know, do all the changes showed in Lightroom also apply to Capture One? Yeah, so one thing with Capture One, we are working on some more profiles for Capture One, first and foremost, and more sliders. So we don't have full support for everything in Capture One because there's some tricks and things that we had to work around to make Capture One go in the first place. But there isn't profile adjustments available for them right now. So yeah, that's something that's in the works. Lots of things happening. It's just a different system. So that is a little bit different. We'll scroll through. Editing feature doesn't work with my AI masking presets. Will this be a feature you might add? Yeah, great question, Coco. So AI masking, that stuff is in the works. So, the team's been hard at work on that for quite a while. So definitely something to be looking forward to because we're really excited about it and excited to have it in there. Sorry, I'm scrolling through here. I do see a question. I'm not seeing the Aftershoot profile name show up in my Lightroom preset panel. Correct. It won't. So Kate, the Aftershoot profile doesn't appear in Lightroom. It'll only be in the history because we're editing that Lightroom catalog. So what I actually did was I actually built a preset to apply on top of the gray card. So yeah, so we show our changes, but what I did in that kind of brief tutorial, I let gray card run, and then I built a preset in which I don't touch the white balance. Like, so the preset, here, I'll share my screen really quick again. So essentially what I did is I built that preset, but I don't have it touch that. So I say create a preset, and I'm saying don't touch the white balance exposure. And I could touch the other things if I want, essentially. So I could like have it adjust all these other pieces, but not the white balance in the exposure or the contrast, or I can even do the contrast. But essentially this preset would be EW01. So what would then happen is I could come over to this image edited by Gray Card Bold, and I would find the preset I just made, which again, I wish they did this in EW01. So I can apply that preset on top. So again, here's your before and here's your after. So that, again, I would do different things, but yeah, absolutely. So that's a way to kind of do that. And we'll keep scrolling through. And thank you, Harshit, for being in the comments. I appreciate that. And Veronica and everybody for helping me out here, keeping me afloat. We've been using for... Sorry, I'm scrolling through comments here. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the comments, and we'll leave it open for just another minute or two. Roger wants to know, how can I reduce the selection even further? So that's a great question. We designed Aftershoot in the initial place to essentially give you one of everything. So there isn't necessarily a way to out of the box have it give you less images right now. So we do have a couple things in the works. We are tweaking and adapting that to make it a little bit better in those spaces. And that's our end goal, right? Is to be able to have you really have more control over total images. But because there's decisions that the AI has to make that it doesn't know how to make, it's not quite able to do that just yet. So for instance, if you had a photo that wasn't technically great, like it wasn't super sharp, or the lighting was a little bit like off or whatever it may be, it may not select that photo, but that could have been a photo of, like, say, a bride and her grandmother or something that you really wanted. But because technically speaking, it didn't make the threshold, the AI doesn't know that that's the bride's grandmother, right? So that's, I think, the biggest hurdle that we've constantly been working towards and trying to improve. But I will show my screen again, and I'll show you some, quick things here. And I'm really sorry that it's going on so long. Yeah, and you're welcome to sign off if you don't want to listen to me blab for more. But some of the things you can do that can really speed this up when it comes to that. So I showed like the warnings thing. That's huge for me, right? I'll go in, I'll reject all the warnings because that's 560 photos that are selected. So I'm down to 1,500 already. Another thing that I generally would sometimes like to do, I'll go in and look at images without faces. And a lot of times I only need like 5 of these. Well, I actually only took 10, so that's fine. Oh, wait, nope, just kidding. I'm going to go back to selected. So I'm going to go to images without faces because I generally don't need a lot of these, and a lot of them are bad test shots or something like that. So, a couple detail shots here or there are good, but a lot of these are just like those in-between frames. I could do like that one, maybe that one, but not this one, not these ones, right? So I'm going to like maybe just one of the shoes, but I'm going to get rid of a lot of these. So again, these will help me speed it up. And another thing that you can do, and this is really particular to what your photography style is. So I personally always take lots of duplicate photos. So I filter by images without duplicates. And I actually will also reject a lot of these. Like I could reject them all to start. And then that gets me down to 618, right? And then what I'm going to do is what I showed before is using the spray can mode. I'm going to look at the green and the ones without colors. So now I'm going to see all the selected photos, which are green, and all of the ones I just rejected. So I can see all 2,000 photos that I started with, but it's only given me 600 selections. And now I'm just going to start like picking out images to add back in from what's left. So definitely something worthwhile. And then, something that's how I would potentially do it. You don't have to do it my way. But it's definitely a way to kind of look at it and see. That's one of the ways that I've culled when I want to get down to like a really small number. But generally speaking, like I said, getting rid of the rejects, or sorry, the warnings, gets me down to 1,500, and I'm delivering this wedding. I'll probably deliver like 1,200 photos because it was a long day and pretty busy. So I only need to get rid of like 300 more excess photos from this point. So that's how I would kind of operate it. Julie's asking, I'll stop sharing here. So Julie's asking, portraits or sorry, senior session. I personally, my senior sessions, I actually like to use them on, I like to use the portrait headshot mode. So I had a senior session not too long ago. Portraits and headshots worked really well for me for the senior sessions, but my senior sessions are also kind of boring. I'm like, hey, like stand over here and look cute, and then lean up against this wall and smile. You know, it wasn't like anything super crazy with like twirling and all sorts of cool stuff. So for me, that it worked for me in the portrait and headshot mode. But yeah, you can definitely give it the try there. And we're going to check out this question here. Is it possible to set a filter on all images that are not selected? That means that all are not selected, no highlights, not in blur, and closed eyes. So I think I covered that. I'll dive it in real quick again here. This is great. Please keep the questions coming. I'm happy to hang. So if I wanted to see the blur and closed eyes together, I absolutely can do that by clicking on both of them. And if I wanted to see the selected ones as well, I can add that in. So this top bar up here, this is a really powerful tool because you can choose all the different filters you want to see the images by. So I can always, like, if I don't want to see the blurred, because I know there's a lot of blurry photos, I can still see the selected and the closed eyes here. So the purple and the green. So if you want to get a nice look at that, if you're using the My Selections feature, that's a great way to go through, right? Is to say, okay, here's like all the photos, they're all clustered, and I can just go through and just use the D key to select all the images I want in that set from here. So that's just a one way to do it. If you don't want us to classify them, you can always turn that off as well. And we'll stop sharing here. Come on back. Great question here. Is it recommended to make a separate custom profile for studio portraits and say outside sport, or can I put all of them in the same scenario into one profile? You could put them all into one profile, but it really depends on how you expect your edits to look at the end of the day, right? So for me, my studio sessions, like the light it's very well lit. My edits are going to be a little bit different. Like the amount of stuff I'm doing with them is going to be different. I'm worried more about like certain tones and white balance and stuff. So I edit them just a touch differently. So I would make two different ones in that case. But if you're editing everything the same, just in different mounts, you could, in theory, make it the same. But generally speaking, like I would probably, sports are almost unique in their own way. Like you would probably have, I'm assuming, less contrast in sports because you need to bring the shadows up because you have uneven lighting and like things that you're working through. So I you know, again, it's tough to say without actually seeing, but I would probably split the two, but it's possible to make them work in one. So that would be something that I would do. Let's see. This question is a great question. I'm going to answer this one because this does happen to Windows users. So if you are a Windows user, there is something that prevents us from actually being able to dive in and open up Lightroom with only the selected ones. So the workaround for that is to select all of your My Selections or selections and drag and drop them in, and it'll only ask to import the ones that you dragged and dropped into Lightroom. But if you click the Export to Lightroom button, unfortunately, there's something within the Windows system that just doesn't let us dive in and do it for you. So we can't tell it to not import everything. And that's answer to someone else's question. And we're probably like 5 more minutes. So squeeze them on in. I don't want to keep you all too long. Can I go over how to use a Lightroom project that has already previously been created to cull and edit? All right, I will do that. That's a good one. Yeah. I will show you how to do that because I totally skipped over that. And that's probably one of the most vital pieces. So definitely. So let's do that. sorry to keep you here. Again, you can drop off if you don't want to learn this, totally fine. But we're going to go over how to go through something that has been culled and then how to edit that. So something that's already in Lightroom that you want to cull and you want to edit. So first thing I'm going to do, let's see if I have something. I'm going to drag and drop some files. Sorry, I don't have anything that's in this position. So we're going to go find something here. Let's see. I'll take this. We're going to select just the green photos here, and we'll drag and drop them in. Oh, that's a lot. All right, we're going to just make believe for me. So first thing we're going to do, if your photos are already in Lightroom, one of the things that we want to make sure that we do, if you've done any editing to them, we need to save the metadata to the files before you do anything in Aftershoot. So what that means is that, like in this view, we want to select all. So the library view, you want to select all and go metadata, save metadata to files. And the reason we do this is because what we're going to do is actually import the metadata from Aftershoot, which is the stars and colors. And when that happens, it's going to reset the image back to the original import phase. So any preset you applied, any editing you've done would be wiped out. So that's why we do that first step. When you save the metadata to the files, you're saving all of your edits and plopping them directly into the file itself. So all of these edits will be saved to the file. So once you've done that, you can then quit out of Lightroom. You can go to Aftershoot. You can run your cull as you would. And then you're going to come back to Aftershoot, or sorry, back to Lightroom, open those files up. And then you would do same thing, library, select all, and then you would read the metadata from the files. And what that's going to do is actually bring all of the stars and colors in from the cull. And as you can see, I didn't save the metadata, so which I did intentionally because I wanted to wipe out all those really terrible edits we just made. So what we've done is we've read the metadata from the files, and it's reset all of the images to the last time I saved the metadata or the original file from that point. So that is definitely the best way to do it. And then of course you would proceed as normal. You'd close Lightroom, go back to Aftershoot edits, run your edits, and then continue on from there. But yeah, so again, starting off, it's metadata, save metadata to files. Then you go to Aftershoot, run your cull. Then you come back and read the metadata from the files. And that covers that. Is there any other questions? I want to make sure. I see that there's one. Harshit got to that one. Yeah, absolutely. If you're using Adobe Bridge, it's pretty easy to just take your files from Adobe Bridge, import them to Lightroom. Those edits will appear. I don't have anything in Bridge that I can show because I don't use Bridge. But essentially, yeah, you would just take your edited files from Adobe Bridge, import them into Lightroom, and then Lightroom will read all of those things, and then you would just take those and proceed to build a profile that way. Oh, I clicked on one and I didn't even know it. Does AI detect if you occasionally add black and white edit into each gallery? Let's say I have a few images similar. Would it be possible to use a black and white edit? So Aftershoot only looks at the color and the black and white, right? So essentially we can't build a profile based on the two at the same time. So you'd have to have a black and white profile and a color profile, two separate profiles. And the way I actually do this is I'll go in to Lightroom. I will make virtual copies of all my images, and then I will run the profile in color on all of the originals, and then I run the black and whites on all of the virtual copies. Because again, it's unlimited, so you can do it as much as you want. So I edit the whole thing that way. So I have everything in black and white if I want it. I know some people actually deliver all of their galleries in both color and black and white, so somebody can have both. I prefer to do segments of the day in black and white, like the ceremony, the formal portraits of the two of them, but family pictures, they don't need it in black and white as far as I'm concerned. So I just do those kind of big parts. I take those virtual copies I made and I dump everything into a collection. So all the colored ones and then all of the black and white images from those key parts of the day that I want to have. And then let's see, Angel said, I have to go from AS Cull to Lightroom first before doing Aftershoot edits. That is correct. So right now you do have to take the files from the culling to Lightroom and then open it back up to edit. Or if they're already in Lightroom, you can just start off. Or if you only want to edit, you can just edit a Lightroom catalog. It doesn't have to be done that way. But yeah, in order to get the files edited, they do have to be inside of a Lightroom catalog. So if you culled them in Aftershoot, you have to bring them into Lightroom to make that happen. And this is another great question. So if we want overall consistency for all of our weddings, we would create one big profile for it to learn off of rather than creating multiple for beach, city, a lot of greens, etc. So actually, that would really depend on how you're tweaking the images differently. So we kind of, the big rule of thumb is it one consistent adjustment that you're always making in different amounts? So you mentioned a lot of greens. So if you're in a position where, like, let's say you're outdoors in a lot of green scenery and you're adjusting like luminance and shadow, or luminance and saturation, and like the color tones and that sort of stuff in your HSL sliders, but you don't do that when you're in the city, you're probably going to want to make two separate profiles for it. Just be like one that's more about being outdoor in the green locations, and then one that's more about being in the city. But if you generally tend to edit everything the same, just in different amounts, so let's just say you do adjust the HSL sliders in both places, just different amounts, you could make one big profile with all of them. You know, for me, like I said, I think it's really good to go through like step-by-step processing, right? So I would start with, like, say, if you have 20 weddings, start with 20 weddings in different conditions, build a profile, and see how how that profile starts editing. And then actually you'll be able to see, like, okay, it's not working great down here, or it's working really good up here, or, you know, I need to add more images from there. So essentially you can start saying, okay, these beach weddings, it doesn't perform really well at the beach because the highlights are totally different. I edit that differently. You could take more beach weddings and dump it in, so it'll learn more from those. So, and then, yeah, and then this user, this person also said, Kate said, you could also solve that with adding a preset on top too. So that is true. You could always build that profile that kind of doesn't deal with the greens, and then have that preset that automatically does the greens that you would apply to those specific cases. But again, your decision. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to kind of monitor the comments. This was super awesome. I'm always happy to do these things. So if you want to learn more, we're always available for you. You can always jump on and hang out. Just remember that referral code thing that's happening soon. So share with all your friends when you get that email, because then you may not have to pay for Aftershoot if you do that. And then, yeah, and then that little sneak peek there for those founders and things and people and stuff, that little prototype. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you all in the Facebook group, and please do share some images. Show us what you've been working on and some of the profiles you did. Bye, everybody.